Hi, I'm Dave Epstein, and welcome to this edition of Growing Wisdom. And today we want to talk about plants and what happens to them after several decades. So, it's really fun to go to a garden center. I do it. I go there, I look for plants. I find cute little plants. They're maybe half a foot, 2 feet tall. Put them in the garden, and a few years later, I've got to move them. Well, in this episode, let's talk about what happens after not just a few years, but 4 decades. Behind me, we have Sargent's weeping hemlock. This is over 40 years old, and you can see how it's weeping over the 2 ponds here. But look how enormous the plant gets. This is considered a dwarf plant. Now, it's dwarf because it's not like the regular hemlock that's going to get to be 60 or 80 feet tall, but nonetheless, if you put that in a place and bought it when it was in a small 1-gallon container, and you're going to live in your home for many decades, that's what it's going to look like. So I'm standing under a river birch that happens to be called Fox Valley, and you can see how extensive the branching has already become. And look at the bark here, it's exfoliating, and that's one of the things that makes this river birch so desirable. But folks get these because they're supposed to stay small, and again, it's relatively small compared to some of its counterparts. However, after 25 or 30 years, it does get to be quite large. So as you're placing these plants, be sure you leave them room to grow, or realize you'll have to take plants out from around them as the plant matures. Now, some of you might have an area that's rather moist and has a lot of sunshine, and they'll tell you, hey, put a willow in, and willows love moisture and sun. And this thing would have looked kind of cute and cuddly when you first planted it, but look what's happened to it over the past several decades. It is quite large. Again, luckily, this particular homeowner has a lot of space so the plant can thrive. So I'm standing in front of a Crypsii, and this is a wonderful Chamaecyparis. Has the great yellow foliage, and that's one of the interesting things about this particular plant, but it's a fast grower, and after 4 decades, you better not put this too close to your house. So look at this particular plant. This is a form of a Korean fir called Silberlock, Abies coreana, and has these wonderful cones. It's just beginning to cone up at this time of the year, and that's one of the desirable things about the plant. Also, it has the beautiful foliage that is blue and green, almost looks like it's twisted. The nice thing about this plant is even after 20 years, it's still not that large. So compare it to the Crypsii, which is so much bigger, and that Crypsii we just showed you, you get those in garden centers in little teeny containers that are only a foot. This is a much slower grower. So this is an umbrella pine, and it's a very expensive plant. If you're looking in the garden center, you'll find them only a couple of feet. They still command a hefty price tag. But now in its 5th decade, it's still relatively small. And I say relatively small because it's not growing nearly as fast as some of the other evergreens that we've shown you. This is a wonderful plant to have far away from your home, somewhere you can really look at it all winter long. What I've tried to show you in this particular episode of Growing Wisdom is how large plants get over time. When you go to the garden center, they may look rather cute and you think they're going to stay small, but over time, they're going to get pretty big. For Growing Wisdom, I'm Dave Epstein.